So, welcome everyone. You guys, we are sitting down with Tim. He is one of the top brokers for RCN Capital. He owns and works for a company called Quickline Capital that specializes in real estate financing as well as a handful of other things. But the important thing here is Tim is really a master in the real estate financing world and is kind of a wealth of knowledge in a whole host of different aspects related to how to broker these loans from a marketing perspective, but also a service perspective and just a true understanding and mastery of the concepts and the topics as well. So it's kind of rare. In my experience, I've met a lot of people in this industry, and it's rare to have someone have so much knowledge in so many different areas of what we do, which is really cool. So what I want you guys to do is, I'm going to dive into this first. What I want you guys to do, you should see a little question box on your end. If you guys want to open that up, that is where I want you to questions as you can think of that you were looking for Tim and I to answer, right? So I can see those on my end, and I will make sure to ask those to Tim as we get going, as we get moving. Throw in the questions as they come up, and I'll grab them as I can. So if you guys already have questions that come to mind, throw them in there. The floor is open. I brought a couple that I can ask at the beginning to get us going, but this is entirely designed to have you guys kind of interview Tim through me rather than having all of you guys yell at him on a Zoom call. So whatever you guys have in mind, throw them into the question box, and we'll dive in and we'll get started in the meantime. However, I'm really relying on you guys to keep putting in questions, keep coming up with ideas in terms of what you guys want us to cover, what you guys want us to talk about. So with that, the first thing I want to do is, Tim, explain to us a little bit of kind of what your business has looked like over the last few years, the kind of changes you've seen over the last 6 months, and a lot of where you see what you've seen change, and then where you see things going. And we'll start there.
Sure. Yeah, so 3-4 years ago, things were much different than they are today, right? So yes, you guys, RCN did have some pretty aggressive, loan terms out there. The process was pretty straightforward, and there were just a ton of borrowers out there, with properties to spare. It was really a time where I had to work on streamlining our process here, right? Because we could always find more loans, but could we really package them and get them to you in a format in which you could fund them? So that was our struggle, 3-4 years ago. Fast forward up to maybe a year ago, it actually started about 18 months ago, and there's really been a shortage of properties on the market, right? So one of the things that we found was that, we had more than enough borrowers. They couldn't find deals. So we sort of helped them, working with each one of the borrowers on some sort of techniques for them to be able to close more deals, get more properties. We also are more than happy to send them terms for 10 or 15 or even 20 properties because we know they're going to lose a bunch of bids before they finally get one. And things are going really good. Still shortage of inventory, but around March, again, we were at the point where we had just added a couple more people to staff. We were looking at maybe adding some others, opening some satellite offices in some of the hotter markets for us, and COVID comes along, right? And when COVID came along, well, the entire world came to a pause, right? So as we started exiting that in late May, early June, I wondered, hey, how much of this stuff is going to come back? I can tell you that for the month of September will probably be the biggest month I've ever had. And we're hiring as fast as we can right now because there's just such demand out there. It doesn't hurt that, your new loan program, your new guidelines that are out are just simple for us to close. Some of the competition that we had to worry about pre-COVID aren't such a concern for us anymore. I've never competed on price. You and I have spoken about this before. I never claim to be the cheapest, nor do I want to be the cheapest out there. We definitely, like to compete on service. But I will tell you that some of those cheaper options are no longer there, right? There's some companies that will just never be back. There's some of the more fintechy companies who are, still paused. Or if they're back with, a 40 to 60% reduction of staff. So for at least the next year, I see that landscape staying the same, meaning it's again like it was 18 months ago. If I can process the deals, there's no limit to how many deals we can put through. Long-winded answer.
Hey, no, long-winded is fine. We've got an hour. That's the point.
Yeah.
So, and that's the reason I wanted to start with that is I know if you guys are joining this call, you're going to have a lot of questions. You might have kind of some concerns about the industry. You might have been struggling, but the reason I wanted to start with that is I had a feeling based on what RCN's numbers have been like in August and what we're seeing in September, I had a feeling I knew what Tim's answer was going to be too. And, March, April, May, even June, we saw a slowdown, right? But last month in July, now in September, things have been ramping up and it's been the craziest in this marketplace it's been since I joined, for sure. I'm used to, before this, I traveled about half the time. I'm just as busy now in twice as many days as I was this time last year, right? And that level of craziness is in the market. So the goal today is to try to help you guys take advantage of that. So I've seen a handful of questions come up all along the same rough line, and there's a couple different ones. One is whether or not you can describe your pay-per-click marketing strategies. There's a couple others about what effective tools do you use for marketing. There's one on thoughts about cost-effective lead generation. So can you talk a little bit about some of that, is about what your strategy was going into COVID and then what changes you've made as to those kind of strategies?
Of course. So I'll wrap it all sort of into one, right? Yes, we do pay-per-click. It can be anywhere from $2,500 a month to $6,000, $7,000. Depends on what our pipeline looks like and how many leads that we have capacity for. I will tell you that for probably the last 2-3 weeks, that pay-per-click campaign it's never off, but it's dialed way back. I just don't want more leads right now. Couldn't really handle them properly. But I will tell you that although that's a lot of money, it is not necessary. When on March 10th, I had flown to Cincinnati and I presented at a Keller Williams office. By the way, I'm in upstate New York. I had flown to this Keller Williams office, presented to a bunch of investors and a bunch of realtors, and from that 1-hour presentation that I gave, I got 7 deals that were headed, towards funding. That will always be the best marketing you can possibly do. Real estate investment clubs, local real estate offices. I can't tell you how many times I've offered, to bring in coffee and bagels for a realtor, and when they have their monthly broker meeting, I say, listen, I'll only take 5 minutes of your time. Let me just introduce myself to your folks. I'll bring in the coffee and bagels, and then I take 15 or 20 minutes because, that conversation just gets started. If you can get a few of those meetings like that, you will get leads just continually coming your way. So some of the other marketing stuff I do, I'm obviously big on Bigger Pockets. If anybody's not on there, you should join there. Purposely make posts in your communities. I'm not asking for business, but I answer forum posts in such a manner that people will want to reach out to me in hopes that I can do the same for them. And there's just so many more free sources. That's, the key to this whole thing. I don't know, I'm sure it runs a gamut of how many deals per month folks on this podcast are doing. But even if it's just one, So if you closed one deal for the month of August, you should have sent out 5, maybe 6 or 7 handwritten letters to the folks on that transaction. And what I mean is you send a handwritten letter to the listing agent, the seller's agent, or the buyer's agent, the closing attorney, if there's a CPA involved, if there's a title company. And all of those things should just say, hey, my name is Tim Maloney. I just closed this transaction for a mutual client of ours named so-and-so. The transaction is very smooth, start to finish, 3 weeks. I think I communicated well throughout the entire process with you. I'm going to follow up next week with a phone call and see how I can help you do this for some of your other clients. Boom. First of all, people don't get handwritten letters. So when you send that handwritten letter, it gets opened. Secondly, you're telling them that you're going to follow up. You're just fresh off of a win, right? We just closed this for them. And the realtors, they love us because they're getting their commission checks in 3, maybe 4 weeks versus sometimes 2 or 3 months. So they love to send deals your way. Plus, you're showing interest in their trade and in helping them and helping their clients. So those letters, I can tell you, always bring more deals. So it's a long-winded answer again, but don't just rely strictly on pay-per-click. You're gonna go broke. Here's the thing. Stephen, I always put you on the spot. Look, we're trying to get clicks in the middle of an arms race. Stephen is out there paying $15 a click. Some other entity is out there paying $15.05 in this arms race. So I will tell you my strategy on pay-per-click. I'm a cheapskate. I like clicks that are between 75 cents and $1.50. Am I on page 1? Absolutely not. But then again, my name is not Jeffrey Tesh, and I don't own RCN Capital, right? So I'm not paying $15 a click, and nor should you. Unless you have the infrastructure to absolutely capitalize on every single click, you'd be wasting a lot of money. So for me, and somebody will ask this, I'm sure, for me, it costs me about 25 clicks for me to get a lead. And I usually close somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 12% of all the leads that come my way. So, figuring out my rough math, at $1.50 a click on average, each lead costs me between $30 and $50, depending. And then if I need 8 of those to close the deal, pay-per-click now costs me between $350 and $500-600 per loan I close. So while I'm still making money and still making good money, I like each loan cost me $0 because it came in off a referral. More importantly than that, too, Stephen, is that when you have a pay-per-click, you're starting from scratch. You got to build a relationship. You got to get the trust. You got to get them going. If I get a referral from some realtor who's recommended them, that's their trusted expert in this space. So I've already crossed that hurdle, that trust hurdle. I get people that call and say, look, I've seen your reviews online. My friend referred me over to you. What do I need to do to get started? He hasn't even seen terms yet, whatever. So I will tell you that those are the new deals that you should be really, really aggressively chasing after. The referrals, not just because they're free, but because they're easier to close.
So there's an insane amount of value in everything that Tim just told you guys. But one of the things that I want to pick out is the idea of so much of your focus should be on locking down repeat business, right? So pay-per-click, great to get the original leads in. And I know, like Tim said, he does a lot of that stuff. But the difference between Tim and a lot of the brokers that work with us and close 1 or 2 deals a month, and Tim, what do you think you're closing in a month, roughly? 20-ish? 5?
20
just with RCN. Yeah. Never mind what Tim closes with other lenders, but just with RCN, Tim's closing in the range of 20 to 25 deals, right? So the biggest difference in my conversations with Tim is his ability to recapitalize on the people he's already worked with. Those handwritten letters asking for referrals. You have how many of you guys on this call sit down after you close the deal and ask for referrals? if you do a great job, like I know Tim does because we've talked with so many of his clients, but like if you do a great job, they're going to be willing to send you more people because like Tim said, you're helping them out with their clients. If you're talking to attorneys, if you're talking to other agents or anything like that, and especially for real estate agents or residential mortgage brokers or your local bankers, you can get them commissions faster. You can help take care of the clients they can't take care of. So you just end up making them look better and better. And that side of things just kind of keeps spiraling and keeps getting better and better for you as a broker. And I will say one of the biggest differences I see between Tim and a lot of the brokers we work with is the ability to capture that repeat business and help his borrowers grow. And so much of that has to do with exactly what he just said, right? Now, I know some of what he just said was talking about in the last couple of questions has been talking about networking, right? In terms of in-person networking, absolutely an incredibly powerful tool. And if your guys' states are in the position where that's a reality, that's fine. Tim is in New York, I'm in Connecticut. There's not a lot of in-person networking going on in either one of our states. You know, there's the occasional, like you're going to grab lunch with someone or something like that, but there's not large, big gatherings like there were, 6 months ago where we had 100, 150 people in a room talking about real estate investing. So I know Bigger Pockets is one that you've brought up as a great way to go and establish that credibility. And I will tell you right now, if you guys go and Google Quickline Capital, one of the things that's going to pop up is Tim answering questions on Bigger Pockets and a handful of other places like that, right? And having your borrower go and Google, because they will Google you, we all know it, right? They're going to look you up, and having your borrower look up, oh, Tim Maloney, Quickline Capital, and have all of his answers as Tim just providing value to people. You know that the deals are going to come up, right? And that's one that I really love when you talk about that, because your focus on it in terms of turning the one pay-per-click lead or one lead from any source into so many deals is just, it's something a lot of people capitalize on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are a whole bunch of questions.
So I decorate my office. Oh, anyway, but on that, so
go ahead.
We decorate our offices with our recent flip, and one of them, it's actually I've moved it to the account executive who closed that one. One of them was that the first person I loaned to in Cincinnati. It was phenomenal. A young, brilliant girl, woman. She did her first flip, made like $80,000-$90,000, and never looked back. And she's just a super repeat borrower with us. She'll be with us forever. She's just never leaving. And she was so impressed with how everything went, and obviously her making $80,000-$90,000 didn't hurt. I asked her. I said, "Hey, listen, can you put me in front of the owner of the brokerage? Can you put me in front of your real estate club?" As it turns out, we got them all together in one spot. And I went there and I gave them a 1-hour presentation that I made up on PowerPoint about the bird strategy, right? Look, I could have talked about the bird strategy for all I cared. I just wanted to get in front of these folks. And by doing so, again, I left with 7 deals, probably would have been 15 or 20 had it not been COVID. And that exponentially just gets bigger as you start closing them. So again, asking for referrals. I know if I were sitting on this webinar 4 years ago, I would say, "Oh, I don't want to ask for referrals." Why not? You just did it. You should have just done a phenomenal job for the person. And if in your heart you believe that you're going to work hard for them and get them their deal funded, why would you not want to do that and offer that to their friends? Because I can tell you our competition is not doing that. In fact, call your competition, test them, see what other brokers are doing. They either don't answer the phone calls, they don't reply to their emails quickly. When they do, they just get out the piece of paper and they're like, "What's your credit score? How many experience do you have? What's this? What's this?" And you're not even speaking to somebody who cares about what you're doing. So I will tell you that referral, train yourself and ask for them.
Yeah. So one of the things you just said there was talking about the. So I have a handful on a different tab. I have access to a different tab than you do.
Okay.
So I can see a bunch coming in. So one of the things that has come through, and a handful of different questions, is talking about when you go and give those presentations to real estate offices, to wherever you're going and talking to people, whether it's real estate offices or investors, what are the main things that you focus on in your presentation?
Great question. So the first thing I do is I try to weasel my way into these things, right? So I befriend somebody in the club, or maybe I've done a loan for somebody in one of these clubs, and I say, listen, I would love to come and present. Is there a topic that your group would like to hear about? And then they actually tell me. You know, I've done presentations showing them the difference between, flipping a house in cash versus leveraging, and how you can make more money by leveraging. I've done, obviously, the BRRRR strategy. I've done, steps for the new flipper, things like that. Look, if they ask me to come in and talk about, the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm going to do a presentation on it. I'm going to go to Google and I'll put together a really nice presentation, and I'm going to talk about the Cavaliers. So I don't care what the topic is. I'm comfortable, speaking obviously about anything in commercial real estate, but it's really, the topic is less important than your delivery and your message. And I am sincere when I go and I tell them, look, I want to help each and every one of you. You'll have my undivided attention, and I'll be with you start to finish, just like I was. And you can hopefully point to one of your existing borrowers in the room, and boom, you're in. You're in with a group of people. And look, and here's another thing, and I'm sure this question will come. Get the cost thing out of the way. People call me all the time, and then they say, what's your rates? How many points do you charge? And I tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, Stephen, I am not going to be the least expensive option for you. However, you will have my undivided attention. Whatever I say I'm going to do, I will do. I know I'm the most responsive. Matter of fact, I have taken your phone call. I'm sure you're waiting on calls back already from 5, 10 other lenders or brokers. I tell you what I'll do. In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to send you exactly what your loan terms are in black and white, down payment, interest rate, closing costs, everything spelled out for you. And I'll also send you a pre-approval letter if you're ready to go and bid on the property. I already know our competition for the most part isn't doing that, and they're not doing that quickly. And then when they come back, and if they want to talk about price, and they say, Tim, your points, oh my God, they're so high. Then I'll tell them, listen, we can go lower on the points, your rate's going to go up. Or I'll, just say, hey, listen, I know you can save a few $100s going elsewhere. How have they been responsive so far? Because I really don't want to see you lose out on this deal here. You send me this deal, and it looks like you're going to make $60,000. To save $500, are you going to risk $60,000? Because if they're not responding to you now, before they've started, what do you think it's going to be like after they have your loan? So those are, and they're all true questions. I'm not trying to just scare people, but it's true. If you can't get a call back from your broker when you're trying to get a deal, what's going to happen when the thing's in underwriting? It's going to take months, And this is a seller's market. If you can't close fast, you lose.
So there's one of the things that you guys will quickly realize when you interact with Tim is there's going to be a whole bunch of information coming at you right away, right? But there's so many different things that I want to pick out of there and focus on. And one of them that I've liked the most, and is part of the reason why I like to ask you to do all these kind of things, is the sincere belief. And everything I've seen validates this. The sincere belief that that he is legitimately the best person to help these people actually succeed, right? And then that gives him everything he needs to just live up to that. And he can just say, like, look, no one else is going to live up to the level of service that I can, right? Nobody else is going to come through and do these things that I can. And that is the number one way that I've seen, and from what you've told me, that you get around the pricing objections, which are always going to come up, right? It's always about, and the classic rule of sales, it's never about price, it's always about value, right? So one of the questions that's come in is,
let me interrupt you.
Go ahead. That's fine.
I have to interrupt you. So only because, look, we've all just been given a very amazing tool to fight the price objection. And that tool is, look, when you send out your terms and you quote these folks their rate, quote it based on giving, RCN 1.5 points, right? So if you get pushback, just tell them, say, listen, I can drop your closing by 0.5 point, but hey, guess what? Your rate just went from 899 to 999. That flexibility you have is now you're not competing on price. They're either buying the rate down, or they're paying higher. But either way, you're still going to make the same amount of money, right? So it's just something that, this new pricing strategy that you guys have is just killer for us, because, now it's so much easier for, look, I work with a lot of other brokers, and I have 2 guys that come to my office quite frequently, and they're always weak about that. They just closed a loan with RCN, and I think they made $1,600, and it was a deal that I would have probably made $3,000 or $4,000 on. And I told them, stop giving them breaks on price. You're giving them just the same level of service you would anybody else. If they're going to walk, let them walk. But at the end of the day, if they really are focused on either the rate, fine. Well, if the rate comes down, the points go up. Then you're still making the same money. And I think that's a very important point for anybody that's listening. Everybody's first instinct is to try to knock us down on what we make. And now you don't have to just do like what I've been doing for 4 years, which is just, fighting and just keeping my rate the same. Now I'm giving them a choice. Sure, I can drop that origination down. I'm going to drop it by $1,000. Your rate's going to go up about a point, whatever the math is, right? So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Well, I meant to interrupt you. I just really wanted to get that point across.
No, and I'm glad you did, because that's a very important change I know that RCN has made. I will admit that I do not know if a lot of the other lenders in the space have made the same kind of change, but it's about that idea to offer more flexibility to your client so they can go through and figure out. I sit down with a lot of brokers, and I just had a call yesterday, and I say, like, you are going to get the value objection of, can you reduce points? It's going to happen. If you guys haven't already, you will eventually get it. I recognize a lot of the names on this list of people I've talked to before. I guarantee a lot of you guys have already gotten this. And having that flexibility built in, and then being prepared to answer it and say, okay, you're not comfortable at this amount of points. What if we did this and we changed the rate a little bit? And having that flexibility and knowing the way to deliver that is going to be incredibly valuable. So I know, kind of piggybacking off of that, one of the questions we had come in here a moment ago, actually pretty early on, from Brian, that I want to circle back around to now, is there a set percentage that you charge on your loans, Tim, or does it change based on loan amount, based on the borrower? How do you structure all of that?
So by the way, that's coming from my man, not Brian, it's Bryant, right, with a T?
I saw the T. I don't know out loud, but I can see that it's Brian.
So my man Brian. Yeah. We communicate. So no, it's not set in stone. So I have account executives now, and I have their pricing. I give them my recommended pricing based on the size of the deal, whatever. It's just something I've built into my model.
Okay.
And
One moment. The chat is asking if you can move a little bit closer to the mic. Try that out.
Right. There must be women on the call. They got to get a better look at me. All right. Or maybe it's you, Steven. You've always looked at me funny. Anyway, so what I was saying is, so I sent my account executives have our model, which is linked up to your loan sizer. And it gives them a starting point where basically my minimum, like, listen, we're not going to make less than this, step up from there. So no, I don't have a set price. look, if I get a 820 FICO borrower with 5 experience coming to me and they want to do a flip, and that flip's in Denver, and it's a $400K purchase and a $200K rehab, I might do that deal for a 1.5, 0.75, especially if I see that they're active, right? Sometimes that person calls you and they say, Tim, you were referred to me by this other borrower here in Denver. I understand that you're the guy to go with. They give you more indications that price really isn't their thing. So maybe that guy's 2.25 points, right? And I'm making up numbers, obviously, but it's just a feel. And look, you get the smaller loans, and I'm sure that the folks are dealing with the same stuff I am. People call 66,000 purchase, 12,000 rehab, 119 ARV. Look, as far as points, I don't even talk points to them. I'm like, listen, we're going to do this deal. Quickline has a $3,500 minimum origination. Unfortunately, your loan falls below, and that's the minimum origination. And I'll never go under 3,500. For most deals, that's $1,250 to you, or maybe $1,700 or $1,500 to you, depending on the deal. That's my minimum. Truly, we're trying to not do anything where we're not making a minimum of $2,000. Just don't. Why? I mean, there's so many other deals out there. Why do it?
Yeah, and that's really important, and it's unfortunately the best answer here is not an easy one to replicate right away, right? So Tim has the experience level to go through based on what he's done a bunch in the past. Tim's done how many hundreds of these kind of loans in the last few years? 3, 4?
It's in the hundreds, yeah. Probably. Yeah. I mean, you can't be a complete open book here, especially since you called me one of the top brokers.
Oof. I knew it was going to come up.
Ousted from my throne. Well, look. But look, it is a lot by feel. If somebody's asking me a direct question, I will tell you that aside from those little small loans, the days of us being able to charge 3.5, 4 points, those are gone. If you're quoting 3.5, 4 points, you're only going to get the deals that have stains all over them. They're going to be harder to do because nobody else is going to want to work with you. So I'm not telling you that you have to be at a 1.75 points, but for the right deal, look, if you get a call to this afternoon from somebody who flips 10 properties a year and they got an 800 FICO, you should be sub 2 points, right? You should be making very little on each one of those deals because you know you're going to do it 10 times a year. And I've got flippers that'll do 10, 15 a year. And now people are so interested in keeping them as rentals. My one client, Rebecca, she's up to probably 50 rentals. And she's still flipping 10 or 15 a year with me. So, of course I'm not going to try to make 2 or 2.5 points on a borrower like that. I want them coming back.
So since you brought it up, that's actually something that I really want to talk about. For the last couple of years, there's been the really hot topic in the industry of the BRRRR strategy, right? Which, for those of you guys who haven't heard of it, You're often going to hear people call it BRRR or anything along those lines. And this is a strategy where people will buy properties, do renovation to them, refinance, hold them as rental properties, and do it and keep doing it again, right? And this is something I know that Tim not only does a lot of, but will also advise his clients to do when it makes sense. So Tim, can you talk a little bit about why you push people in that direction if you think it's a good fit, and how it's good for not just the borrower, but you as a broker, right? Because you want to hit both ends.
I love it. Yeah, even before I say that, look, let's all recognize that that's probably the hottest term right now in commercial real estate. There are some people now that are moving beyond the BRRRR strategy. They're on the sort of the cutting edge, right? The people that are moving away. But the other 90%, that's an important word. So important, in fact, if you look at my card, what does it say, Stephen? It says BRRRR strategy expert, right? And that's what you have to present yourself as. We're not just brokering loans. We're also their trusted advisor. We're also the person that's never going to allow them to enter into a loan agreement where we don't think that they have a very good chance of making money. And that is a very true statement, because Lord knows RCN isn't going to loan it if they don't have a very good chance of making money. But, how I talk to people about the BRRRR strategy, people are flipping. And look, there's folks who just absolutely detest the idea of not having rentals. And I'll tell them, I'm like, Stephen, let me ask you what you hate more. Do you hate not having tenants, or do you hate paying taxes? And of course, they're going to laugh, and you're going to, continue the conversation. But at the end of the day, and this is a very easy example that I give to all of my borrowers. So if you have a pen, you can write this down. I say, Stephen, you're going to buy a property that needs rehab for $100,000. Because of your experience, I'm going to loan you 85% of the purchase price. So you're going to need roughly $15,000 down. You say you need $50,000 in rehab, I'm going to loan you 100% of the renovation. When this property is done, you will owe me $135,000. You're telling me now that this property, when you're done, is going to be worth $200,000. Let's just say it's a small profit flip. $200,000. Well, given your credit, we are going to then refinance you at 80% of the after repair value. You're going to get a loan for $160,000. You're going to pay off my, $135,000 flip note that you owe, and you're going to get back, $25,000. Your entire down payment, some of your profit, and oh, by the way, that profit isn't taxable. That's debt. If you go and sell this place, you can get it all back, but then you're paying taxes on it. You can kick the can down the road. Hold the property for a year or two. Talk to your accountant to see how long you need to hold it. But that tax argument, and by the way, that little 2-minute little thing I just said to you, that can be your presentation in front of a group of investors. Stretch that little 2-minute thing out over a few slides, and you've got an hour presentation, and people love it. And then, listen, I'm just talking to my colleagues, but when I'm talking to people, I say, listen, I'm not giving you tax or legal advice. I am just telling you, your accountant will probably love it because it's debt. It's not profit. You don't have to pay tax on it. Now, I used a pretty small example, but the real examples are like my borrower in Cincinnati. She made $80,000 or $90,000 on her first flip. Why in the world would you want to pay a marginal tax rate of, call it 35% on this $80,000 in profit when you can just refi it, hold it as a rental, get $50,000 of that profit out as debt, not taxed? So it's a pretty easy argument. You quickly see people see the value of that. Keep in mind what's going on in the marketplace too. There's currently far less than a 1% vacancy rate for what they call prime rentals in the United States. Now, I'm not talking about crap in bad neighborhoods, right? I'm talking about the types of homes that people would flip. There are none. It's only going to get worse now from COVID because a lot of folks were out of work. Are going to even have a harder time getting a mortgage. So, hold these things as rentals. You're going to get the 700-800 FICO, renters. They're not going to destroy your place. And oh, by the way, if you believe that the market's getting hotter and hotter, 5 years from now, you're going to make even more money. And oh, by the way, you got all that rent. So this BRRRR strategy, it sells itself. It is the absolute hottest topic in investors right now. Again, it's ironic. The guy who invented the term BRRRR, he also is the founder of Bigger Pockets. He's now starting to try and sell a new book where he says, no more BRRRR, we're going to do this. So I wish he'd just keep his mouth shut.
So one of the pieces on there that I want you to talk about real quick, Tim, is obviously this is great for the investor because they can defer that tax payment, or they can, eliminate those kind of issues by holding those tenants in place, which increases their profit kind of lifetime. However, why is it also great for the broker involved? Why is it as great or better for you as the broker involved on these deals? What's the biggest benefit there?
Biggest benefit is doing more and more deals. right? You know, when you convert that first-time flipper into just starting the project with the thought in mind to keep it as a rental, instead of doing one flip loan, you're now doing a flip loan, the refi BRRRR, and you're going to get them right back into another flip. And by the way, this is a very emotional thing. All but the most serious flippers get emotional about these properties. They don't want to just sell them. They want their money, but they love the option because they just poured their heart and soul into fixing this place up. They don't mind keeping it as a rental. They love the option, especially, you know, we say, hey, listen, we don't need tax returns. You know, we're very asset focused. We don't even care about your income. If the rent more than covers the debt, this is going to be something we're going to want to loan on. And you can keep it forever. This is a legacy for your children. Boom, they're doing them. Next thing you know, somebody who said that they're never going to hold rentals is holding a portfolio of 8 of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I know I've noticed a couple more questions coming in. Remember, you guys can keep throwing them in as we go through everything. If we don't get to everything today, we'll try to drag Tim in for future interviews, and we'll get to a lot of this stuff as we keep going. With that, there are a couple that I want to jump on. And one, actually, real quick, this is a good question, is how did you get started in this space? Now, I don't mean necessarily how did you start your brokerage here, but what made you pick commercial real estate, and then how have you really exploded out that customer base?
Sure. So I'll tell you this, 5 years ago, if you called my office or you looked at our website, I did everything. SBA loans, factoring, equipment leasing. I mean, shit, if you could loan on a turtle farm, I was going to do a turtle farm loan. So the problem with that was, you know, I had some great relationships with a few great banks, but at the end of the day, I wasn't on a first-name basis with anybody there. Also, it was very, very hard to keep track of all of their guidelines. You folks on the call will know how much it sort of turns us upside down when RCN sends us a new, you know, hey, updated sizer. And for a while, I wasn't upset. I was excited because they were getting better. But imagine I was doing that with 30 or 40 different lenders. So, you know, spreading myself way too thin. I wasn't really becoming an expert in any one thing. It was hard for me to sort of monetize the loans I was closing because if you can imagine, you know, how many turtle farm loans can you possibly do in a year? So nothing was really, you know, growing upon itself. And then I went to a conference and I ran into a gentleman who's also with you, Stephen, Bennett Abel. And you know, look, I looked at the successful people who were really doing it in this industry, and they were focused. And in fact, they were focused on flips and you know, small residential loans. You know, we do commercial as well, but and that's really what started, Stephen. You know, it was a great fit with you 4 years ago. I liked the process. It was very easy for us. And you know, obviously, some of the marketing stuff we've done has allowed me to turn a few deals. You know, if you can remember, I mean, shit, 4 years ago, we were probably doing 2 to 4 a month with you. And then, you know, it just sort of just keeps ballooning up, right? You know, I promised Jeff this. I fell a little short because of COVID, but there's a number in my head for this year, and we're getting there. So, and it's because we're doing a great job. And it's not just me, it's everybody here. We're really doing a great job at communicating with the borrowers. Good news, bad news, doesn't matter. They're big boys and big girls, communication. So I started telling you about where my business was, ended up with communication.
But hey, I mean, that's part of, I would argue that's one of the most important pieces from what you've told me over getting to know each other over the last few years of the way you have built your business, is that promise of communication no matter what it is. So that, I mean, that is a factor. That is kind of the foundation of where you came from, right? Is the, I'm going to take the best care of my borrower, better care than anyone else will take care of. And that's the, I mean, that's the foundation of your reputation, right? And that's why you can, have the situation where you talk to people and say, hey, I'm not going to be the cheapest option, but I'm going to be the best, right? And that's a promise that I would encourage every single person on this call to shoot for, right? You should always shoot to be
For sure.
the best person in the market. Yeah. So there's a couple pieces. There's a couple other questions I want to dive into quick while we have time. And one that we've kind of talked about, and that's, where do you think the greatest market demand is right now?
Wow, I love that question. So understand, for me, right before COVID, I was this close to opening offices in Cincinnati, Ohio, Virginia Beach, Virginia, and Memphis, Tennessee. Keep in mind, although I don't believe them to be the hottest markets, they are for me, because I was doing clusters of borrowers in those areas, and those areas are good areas for flipping, but they're also bringing more borrowers from those areas. So having said that, if I could pick any one region of the United States to get all of my deals from for the rest of this year, it would be the state of New Jersey. All the way from the Jersey Shore to Bergen County, to Trenton, and even Newark, believe it or not. There's a lot of activity there, and people are moving out of that city. And where are they moving to? Jersey. We have some very active flippers there. I love the loan sizes. We've got a guy there who's buying them for $600-700, putting $200-300 into them, selling them for $1 million, $4 million, $5 million. How many of those loans do you need to do before you're making your year? So to answer that question, that's where I was. And by the way, we still will at some point get back to an office in those three cities, hopefully in 2020, although it's looking like early 2021.
And so there's so many different reasons, like Tim said, that I really like that question. And one of the pieces so Tim talks a lot about geographic area here. I actually want to take you now on the other side of that question, which is, where do you think the best business-based opportunities are in the market? So different ways you can help investors. There's different pockets. So talk with us a little bit about the different ways that you're targeting and having those conversations with investors, and the best opportunities you think are coming up for investors that brokers should be aware of now so they can start coaching their people through it.
Sure. So, you saw my card, right? And it says expert on there. And if you read my Bigger Pockets post, I'll talk about myself like I'm an expert. Certainly, if you ever hear me in real life, like you are now, I will tell you I am an expert in commercial real estate. And you need to be too. People don't want to go to somebody who's wishy-washy. And I will tell them, Stephen, you got your heart set on these cute little single-family homes. There is a ton of competition. You're having 20, 30 people show up at the auction bidding. Guess what didn't have 30 bidders on it? That 4-unit that was 4 miles down the road, because it's a gray box, right? It's not a sexy property. But you know what is sexy? The fact that you're not bidding against 29 people, that you're going to make more money, that the rents are going to be higher because we're going to get you to keep that thing as a rental, and you're going to make $100,000 instead of maybe making 30 on that single family. So I am really steering people towards the multifamilies. If they have their heart absolutely set on the single family, and I cannot believe I'm about to tell 38 people this, but what you need to do is you need to get your buyers prepared to beat them all at auction, at auction or the bidding. And this is exactly how it's done. You say, Stephen, I love that house. I know there are going to be a lot of people bidding on it. You're not going to get it for $125. But instead of paying $160 and cutting your profit down to $10,000 or $15,000, you bid that thing up to $160, but send me a rehab budget where you're adding a bedroom. You add 650 square feet, and you just increased your ARV by, making up numbers, $75,000. You can now bid higher than anybody else there and still make more money than any of them, because unfortunately, you're bidding against a lot of mom and pop. It's their first time doing a flip, and they're all just bidding because they're emotional about the place. If you're adding square footage to a property, you should never get outbid. Boom. That's how you can get your borrowers to not get outbid.
I like that.
And hey, I'm going to stop you. Yeah, I'm sure you like it. And then when your loan connection, hears about it, they're going to probably flip out, because I know my guy isn't always crazy about some of my flippers adding square footage all the time. So it makes the deal harder.
Hey, it's easier for our team not to flip out when they see the added volume that comes through from the investors getting more and more of those bids at auction, right? It's easy to talk to Jeff and say, hey, we shouldn't worry about this too much because loan volume doubled last month, right? So we'll take that.
Yeah.
So we have a good question that I missed up until now, which is, for the people that are diving in, and I know this wasn't your background, but for the people that are coming into this, like David, who came as a residential lender and is familiar with parts of the process, what are the common topics he should talk as he's trying to add investor products to his portfolio of offerings that he has for his own clients?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the easiest closers for these RCN products, right? Look, low doc, 6-7 docs. I'm going to handle them all for you. We don't ask for tax returns. We don't care about your income. We are very asset focused. If you've ever thought about wanting to flip properties, help me. Come with me. I will help you get the financing you need. And oh, by the way, I will never loan you money on a property where you don't have a more than good chance of making money. Let's go. And by the way, residential mortgage brokers are some of the best referral partners I have, because unlike David, most of them they don't do commercial, right? People call them up about a loan like this, and they don't have a source for it. So that's a great referral source for any of you.
And that's actually the recommendation I would make to you, David, and anyone else who's residential lender or came from that side originally, is just add it in to everything else you do, and then interact with all of your friends that you already have, all of the network that you already have in place in the residential side. Just tell all of those people, hey, this is something I'm doing now. I can take any of those deals if you have them in mind, and they can keep all of the residential stuff that they would normally get from that client and whatever. So there's a couple of
I see one. I'm sorry, I see one on mine. I don't know why you don't see it, but it's been there for the longest time. I want to just address it real quick. Common red flags that I look for. So I'll cover these, as quickly as possible. But the first red flag, selfishly, is when I'm being compared to some other broker or some other lender. I really do try to sniff that out as early as possible, because at the end of the day, I'm nobody's backup plan. So that's one of the red flags. And if I get that feeling, I will then ask the question directly. I don't ask yes or no questions either, right? So, basically I'll say, Stephen, I presented some exceptional terms in front of you. What time today will I get my docs? I want to get this thing started. Let's get this right into underwriting. What time today will I get docs? And you say, well, I don't know. I need to think about it. And that's when I ask you the direct question. Stephen, are you working with another lender or broker right now? Because if you are, you just went to the bottom of my pile. So that's a red flag that we watch out for. We don't like being backup plan, and I'm never going to bid against myself. The second red flag is, well, there's some flakes out there. When you get the impression that the person might not be legitimate, request a few docs. Just say, hey, listen, I'm sending you these approval and terms. Do me a favor, shoot me over your ID and this month's bank statement or the most recent bank statement. And you're going to get that bank statement, and it's going to have $212 in the checking account. It's a deal you probably shouldn't work on. And then red flags that once a deal's starting, so I'm not sure of this question, but red flags that I look out for, fake bank statements. Luckily I have somebody here who could sniff that shit out from a mile away, but it doesn't stop people from thinking they can get one over. Look, Bank of America's bank statements are all in one font, and they're not crooked. They're pretty easy to see. You do get people who, they got this, especially now, we've got a higher liquidity requirement, and the temptation is. So I'm not going to tarnish my reputation by sending up to RCN, a fake bank statement. We're gonna look for those, and that's more than a red flag. That's you're banned for life type thing. But so there's the red flag question. Go ahead, Steven.
No, that's good. I didn't see that one because it was in a slightly different window. So I'm glad you found that one as I was asking you all the others. And I see another one over there. What's your favorite type of property to look for when investing or brokering? Which I know you've already talked about with multifamily properties, specifically the 2 to 4 units, because you have less competition on those. The profit margin's higher a lot of times with the rental income. We got time for one more question, I think. We got to hop off at 4. I can't take up too much of Tim's day. But if you guys have more questions in the future, feel free to send them over to our team. We'll answer whatever we can. And then if you guys really like this, let us know, and we'll dive into other series like this in the future. But now, one more question that I want to ask that Mike just threw in a minute ago is, do you set up fee agreements with your clients? And if you do sometimes, do you do it sometimes, or do you do it always?
Never. So I never do it. I also never take anything up front. That's one of our cornerstones of who we are, Quickline. We never charge anything up front. If I'm unable to close this loan, I haven't made a penny. The only thing that comes out of your pocket before closing is the appraisal. I've done fee agreements for other types of deals like warehouses and large deals where I'm going to be, in on it for 6 months, right? So I do that, but one, it's illegal in New York State for us to charge upfront fees for a financial service that hasn't yet been performed. But even if it were legal, I wouldn't do it. I think that we have a hard enough hurdle gaining that trust up front. Look, I won't name people by name, but there's enough other brokers and companies out there who make us all look bad by charging a $1,500 due diligence fee, knowing damn well they cannot do the deal. They're really in the business of grabbing a fee. So don't become that person. It's just not a very good long-term strategy.
And that is one of the best things that I have myself started to talk more about after meeting Tim and hearing the way that he talks about it is, part of his sell of he is the best at what he does talks about like he doesn't want to get paid unless he's excelling at what he does and we can get this deal closed for them, right? And that's a major point to bring up. And I know fee agreements are going to come into that and everything along those lines. The other side is if you're doing your job as a broker, these should be closing in 3 to 4 weeks, right? Assuming you don't have some crazy appraisal scenario. You've got some weird appraisal stuff that happens occasionally, especially now with COVID issues. That kind of stuff happens. But, if you're sitting there, most of the time, these things should run pretty smoothly. Appraisals might be a little slow, but everything else should function really, really easily. And it shouldn't be that bad to get a deal started and get it paid off by the end of that month or within a few weeks, right? So that brings us to 4 o'clock, everyone. So I want to thank everyone for showing up. Tim, do you have anything else you want to address that we forgot?
No, I don't know. I know a few folks have already emailed me, from this webinar. I'm not sure, but I'm Tim Maloney at Quickline, or it's T Maloney at quicklinecapital.com. I'm never going to do your job for you, but I'm happy to answer a very pointed question, quickly, right? I'm not going to make you wait. Look, there's enough business out there. I hope that all 39 of you are able to do anything that, I can help you, because, we should never know each other exist, right? There's just so many folks out there going unfunded. I can tell you this, there's absolutely no reason why everybody on this webinar won't have a deal closed 30 days from today. And if you find yourself that's not the situation for you, please reach out to me, because, I want to see that happen for everybody.
So those of you guys who haven't already gotten his email, you know how to find us at RCN. You can reach out to anyone on the team. You can reach out to myself, and I will gladly make an introduction to Tim. You can also find him online. As you've heard, he's on Bigger Pockets. You can find him on LinkedIn. He is not difficult to find. You can find him that way. Go through, take a look, take in the kind of stuff. We actually did a previous interview where we went a little bit more in depth, just the two of us, on some of these conversations, and you can find that on LinkedIn as well. And then if this is something you guys like, let Tim and I know, and we'll do more of this kind of content. So thank you everyone for showing up, and thank you Tim for sitting down with me and answering a lot of these questions. Absolutely, it's great to see you, man. We'll see you soon.
You're very welcome. It's always a pleasure. Bye.
Appreciate it. See you later. All right, everyone. That is the end for today. We do have another webinar coming up in a couple weeks where Tim is going to sit down with us again with another man he talked about today, whose name is Bennett Abel, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the kind of topics we covered today. We're going to have a little bit heavier focus on marketing for that one, but that's something you guys want to be aware of too. If it's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to the team, and we'll let you know what's going on there. So thank you, and I'll see you guys later.